Good evening and Cade Mila Fáilte to the latest episode of the Late Late Show with me, Irish Tommy. And I'm not solo this week, I'll be glad to tell you. I have got the one and only Gatesy from Forged from Iron. How are you doing, mate?
I'm doing all right, Tom. How about yourself?
Doing good now. Looking forward to Christmas. Hoping Santa's going to be very kind to me this year. I've been a very good boy.
Yes, that's very good to hear. Did you put your list up the chimney, or did you go round to his grotto and sit on his knee? And
no, I sent my letter off to Santa up in Lapland. A few months ago. I was, well ahead. I wanted to make sure his elves had plenty of time.
Did you put an air fryer on your list?
Yes.
We got one the other month, and I've figured out how to work it at last. And I got to say, it's a decent bit of kit.
I'll tell you honestly, I got one gifted to me, second hand by friends of mine who bought a new one and didn't need the one they had. Perfect working order. It's in the cupboard, pressed under my sink somewhere, completely unused for months. Fucking thing's a mystery to me.
Man after my own heart. My kids had figured it out long before I did. They were sort of like in and out, and I'm looking and I'm thinking, I've got to figure out how to use this. And it was pretty straightforward once I'd worked it out, but it looked really complicated at first.
Yeah, you're getting older, your kids have to show you how to use stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it works in this house. They're sort of like they're very, very technologically advanced. I mean, everything's on YouTube, and they sort of like they gen up on it and whatever, and they do something that I never do, and they read instruction booklets. So
yeah, that's it. Anyway, cheers for joining me, Gatesy. Appreciate it. No. Always love having you on to get your views. Not a huge amount to talk about at the moment. We haven't had a game in a while. But I don't know if you saw the thumbnail. We've got some defensive woes, and that's really what I want to get into first. Obviously, some of the, I suppose, kind of the most breaking news is this apparent issue between David Moyes and Vladimir Coufal. Now, according to Coufal, he's not particularly happy with the amount of game time he's gotten. I imagine he's talking about the Premier League because he has had game time elsewhere. Conference League and domestic cups and stuff, but Premier League has been out of favour a bit. Kerrer's tended to play on the right. Johnson has played a little bit, but mostly it's been Kerrer who's been put over there. And Vladimir Coufal saying something very interesting, that David Moyes didn't really talk to him. And we've heard this before. We heard it from Alex Kral, who said he was very frustrated and trying to get anything from David Moyes, like trying to get blood from a stone. He was in the office of David Moyes, asking him, what do I have to do, to give myself a better chance of playing, get more game time? Is there something you think I need to improve on in training or anything like that? And Moyes just fobbed him off, basically said, just keep your head down, keep working hard. And that was kind of it. And we have Vlasic kind of saying the same thing, that it's very hard to get any communication with Moyes. And now we've got Coufal basically saying the same thing as well, and looks like he wants out because he's not getting the game time that he feels he needs. It's a bit of a troubling situation, really, Gatesy.
Yes, it's well, I mean, he's got form, as you've already alluded to, with Kral, with Vlasic. I think that David Moyes, he's very much a throwback as far as Premier League managers are concerned, isn't he? He's not very, as Gonzo would say, he's not very good at the old schmoozing, is he? He's very much, if you're in his plans, then you're sort of like you're on a winner. But if you're on the periphery, then you sort of like you're probably going to struggle to get anything out of him. And this is another little piece of evidence for that particular narrative. I personally, I think we know that Ashby's on his way. So we've basically got three guys really that can play at that position, and Coufal's one of them. Obviously, Ben Johnson's another, and Kerr's another. But I don't think Kerr's really covered himself in too much glory in that position. And even at centre back, I think he's looked like he's got a rick in him. Don't get me wrong, for a £10 million player, he looks decent value. But I just every time I watch him, even at centre back, I've sort of thought, yeah, he's probably going to make one cock up in a game, and it's just a question of whether it's going to be sort of something that the opposition can capitalise on. But Coufal, if what we've sort of like led to believe comes to pass, and that possibly Leverkusen may well be his destination, possibly in this upcoming January transfer window, surely that means that we're gonna have to get a right back in, because that will leave us with Johnson and Kehrer as the only two recognised right backs. That's not a good spot to be in.
Yeah, we've got a real problem at right back, as you say. We've got Harrison Ashby, who's obviously gone. He's going to be gone. He's very likely going to go to Newcastle in January. We've got Coufal, it looks like now might leave. Apparently he likes it in London and he likes it in the Premier League. There's also a kind of a strong link now that Fulham might come in for him as well in January. So that could happen. And then we've got Ben Johnson, who's not happy either. Who doesn't want to sign a new contract. His agent just doesn't even want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And as you say, I mean, it leaves one player in Kehrer, really, who's actually probably happy at the club. That, as you say, he hasn't, in a lot of games, he hasn't looked too clever at right back.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we've definitely got an issue there. And to be honest with you, when it comes to Coufal, okay, I think he's eminently replaceable. I'm not that pushed about the Coufal situation as regards him potentially leaving the club. My worry is the way that Moyes treats players who are maybe not in his favour. Lack of communication. He clearly disgruntles these kinds of players and kind of makes them want to leave. Same thing with Harrison Ashby. You know, I think it's a disgraceful situation that Ashby is at the point where he wants out. I don't think it had to come to that. And it was completely unnecessary. And I can't blame him. I think a lot of our players, whether they're young players or they're just players like Coufal who are maybe just out of favour, they don't really see a path forward with Moyes. They seem to be, with Moyes, it seems to be you're either in the club, you know, like a Coufal or a Bowen, that no matter what happens, you know, you're one of his boys. And, you know, you're going to play and you're always going to kind of almost be in favour. And then you have people like Coufal that once you're out in the cold, you just get the cold shoulder. And I think
very black and white.
Yeah, I think it makes players want to leave. And we're seeing that now with Ashby. We shouldn't be in this situation with Ashby. Look, if Moyes just doesn't rate him and thinks he's not going to make it at the required level, then okay, fair enough. But I think he's incredibly promising, and I think he should have been much more prominent. You know, given that Coufal's form was poor at the start of the season, and that we needed Kehrer at centre-back in the early games of the season, I thought that was a perfect opportunity to either put Ben Johnson in there, give him a real run of games in his natural position, or better still, I think, to get Ashby in there and say, all right, son, let's see what you've got. And let's really evaluate and assess him in the early part of the season and give him the hope that he can actually force his way into the first team. We didn't do any of that. And also, like with the Ben Johnson situation, I don't blame him for wanting to leave. He's at, again, like Ashby, is at a critical stage of his development where he has got to be playing regular games. And he's got to be doing it in his best position, which is right back, in my opinion. And that hasn't been happening. Even though Johnson has had relatively decent game time, for me, he's just been kind of flung from pillar to post. He's basically been used as a stopgap in various positions, whether it's right back, he's played centre back, he's played as wing back, he's been on the left-hand side as a left back and left wing. And like, you know, for a player's development, I think that's no good to them. I mean, you know, if Johnson had been put in at right back and allowed to develop there, then who knows at this point what kind of player we'd have in our hands. I think David Moyes has stunted his development by flogging him from pillar to post and not letting him, giving him a chance to kind of nail down a position and grow into that position. When you say Declan Rice, right? Let's say we, instead of kind of, I know he initially came in at centre back, but he was very quickly moved into defensive midfield, and he was played there then game after game after game after game. He was allowed to grow into that position and to evolve in that position. Imagine if Declan Rice, as soon as he came into the team, had been played at, like, say, centre back, full back, defensive midfield, wing back. I mean, we wouldn't have the midfielder that we have now.
Yeah.
Because he wouldn't have had the opportunity to develop the way he did. So I feel really bad for Johnson. I think Moyes has stunted his development, and I don't blame him for wanting to go to a club that will put him at right back and leave him at right back and play him, because I think at this age that's what has to happen for him. And I agree with him, actually, that the prospects for that are not very good.
Yeah, I think that he has been definitely a victim of his own versatility as Ben Johnson. And you're absolutely correct. A player will not learn, especially at the sort of like, I'm not talking later on in their career. I mean, sort of like some players, like a James Milner, for example. James Milner is very much a player that can shift around, but James Milner's in his mid to late 30s now. So he's been around the block, and he knows what each of the different positions on the pitch require in terms of their skill set. They're, a fullback is very different to a central midfielder, and so on and so forth. Ben Johnson is still learning his craft, and one game he'll be at right back, then he'll be at left back, then he'll be left centre back in a 3, and then he'll be a right centre back in a 2, and he's even had a game in central midfield. And when you're shifted around like that, you're that in that sort of relatively early stage of your development, your career, you're not going to be able to necessarily absorb all of the different nuances and the different aspects of what it requires to be a good player in a Premier League team. If you don't know where you're going to be from one game to the next.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even know if you'll be playing, when you'll be playing, and where you'll be playing.
Yeah,
and it doesn't do him any favors whatsoever. The other issue we have at the moment, of course, is that we've got 3 fit centre backs. Aguerd, I don't know if you've heard any latest news on Aguerd. I mean, how long he's going to be out? Have you heard anything, Gates?
It's apparently, I'm hearing, this was a report in L'Equipe, which is obviously a world-renowned publication. So you take what they say and with a great deal of credence. And I'm hearing that the original report was that it was a grade 1 tear in his was it his hamstring, if I remember correctly.
His groin, I think.
Yeah, it was whichever muscle group it was. They said it was a grade 1 tear, which they reckoned was a 1 to 3 week recovery. But they're now saying that there's a very distinct possibility that it's actually a grade 2, which means 4 to 6 week, which is a big difference. You're going from a situation where best case scenario he's out for a week. Now it's worst case scenario he could be out for 6. That's huge. I mean, and this is a guy that has barely played in Claret and Blue since we've got him. I mean, he got injured in the pre-season game. He did his ankle in, and he's gone to the World Cup, who I think he's looked excellent. I really think he's looked, Morocco has, they've done exceptionally well, and he's been a key component of that success. Obviously, he got the injury in the game against Spain, and real shame, because I was looking at him in the World Cup time, and probably the same as you, same as most West Ham fans, looking and going, okay, this could be someone that's dead handy to come in. If he can come in a game or two after the restart of the Premier League season and display that sort of form, then we're onto a winner here. But now it looks like we might be a month and a half without him.
Yeah, it's actually shocking. We've, like I say, we spent a lot of money on him. He was David Moyes' first choice target in the summer. We got him in early doors. one of the few players we got in early,
Yeah.
and we didn't get to see him. And he made a couple of substitute appearances in the Premier League, and then he was off to the World Cup, and then gets the injury at the World Cup, and we're not quite sure when we're going to see him now. We may not see him in January, and it's just, I don't know what it is with us and centre backs. It's just
I mean,
of injuries. It's unbelievable.
I go back a little way, Tom, and I remember that you say centre backs. I mean, we seem to be cursed in all sorts of different positions if I actually sort of stop and think about it. But centre back, I sort of go back and I remember players like Simon Webster and Richard Hall, who were brought in the 90s and got injuries very early on in their career, which basically resulted in their early retirement. Now, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that Naif Aguerd is in danger of that particular fate, but it is. It's just like, oh my goodness. I mean, we've had Kurt Zouma all season that has been, running around like he's got shrapnel in his leg.
Yeah.
And then he sort of like...
Even going back to Reed,
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, fantastic player when he played, but again, someone that was very injury prone. But yeah, just we just seem to have this jinx, this X with centre back. It's really quite astonishing. I don't know what we must have done to sort of. There's someone broken several mirrors at West Ham. Have someone sort of walked under ladders? What the hell's going on?
Yeah, it's strange. I mean, obviously, look, there's just no way we're going to be we can allow Craig Dawson to leave in January now. He's going to have to stick it out till the end of the season.
Yeah. I do feel sorry for him on that as well.
Yeah. We've got another one who doesn't really want to be there, So Fell, who doesn't want to be there. Harrison Ashby's off. Johnson doesn't really want to be there anymore.
Happy Cap.
Yeah, we're still kind of stuck with Cresswell at left back, albeit he's been playing quite well. We don't want to have an injury to him. So
Cresswell got an injury, didn't he? He got injured in the Cambridge friendly.
Yeah, but I mean, hopefully it's not long term though, is it?
Oh no, I don't think it's a long term, but whether he's going to be. I mean, obviously we got the friendly tomorrow. But he came off in the Cambridge game, didn't he? And I don't believe he travelled to Udinese. Whether he's involved tomorrow obviously remains to be seen. I've not heard anything either way, but yeah, I mean, potentially we could go to that Arsenal game, and it could be that if Cresswell's injured, Zouma's injured, and Aguerd's injured, it's like, well, who's playing where? I mean, we've got Ben Johnson. We're going to have to play him probably at left back, and as we've already discussed, it doesn't look like he's exactly a very happy camper at the minute. You've got Coufal. He might have to play at right back. You're going to have to put probably Kehrer and Dawson as the centre-back pairing if you're going to go 4 at the back. But you look at that. So Johnson, Coufal, 2 players that are unhappy in with the manager. Dawson, a player that wants to go back up north for family reasons, completely understandable. And as I say, Thilo Kehrer, who it always looks like he's got a rick in him. It's like, yeah, that's not really sort of a back four you really want to be taking on the table toppers in their own backyard.
No, and the thing with this is, I mean, it seems to be a perennial issue. It's like every year, no matter what, this seems to be a problem we've got at the back. And no matter how much money we bloody chuck at it, how many players we bring in, we seem to always have the same issue at the back. There's either disgruntled players or, you're playing kind of older players who are maybe not at the peak of their powers, or you've got a load of injuries, and it just never seems to bloody end. I mean, even with Aguerd, what is he, 23, 24? He's a young player, isn't he? Yeah, a player who you would think should be fit, should be able to stay fit, and we can't even get him right, and it's a ridiculous situation. And we're going to be talking again come the end of this season, Gatesy, when we're talking about where the money needs to be spent. We're going to be talking about defenders again.
Yep. Yeah. And the one other thing also has just popped into my head. It also makes me wonder why. And I agree that he needed to be loaned out, but Manny Longello, why was there not some sort of recall clause in the loan arrangement that would have allowed us, if a situation of extreme injury is concerned, we can activate a recall clause and get him back? He's absolutely ripping it up in champ for Birmingham. He's doing really well. And in this situation, I would absolutely support bringing him back and playing him at left back if Cresswell's not going to be ready, or at least having him as cover. Because at the minute, I don't know, mate. Honestly, it's really a dicey situation at the minute. We need at least a performance against Arsenal. I'm not really expecting us to go there and win. I'm hoping we'll go there and be able to get a result of some description, but I'm not expecting it. And I think most realistic West Ham fans don't expect a result. But exactly what Lawrence says there, I expect to see 100% effort, and I expect to see a performance that we can at least come away from the Emirates, look at and go, right, there's reasons to be positive here. There's something we can build on, even if it's a reverse. If we lose 2-1 or 1-0 or whatever, if we can at least look at that result going into the Brentford fixture and Leeds after that and go, we've got building blocks here. We've got a team that are galvanised, that are together, that they're not a team that's going to sort of just sort of crumble. They're going to stand up to be counted. That's what we need to have against Arsenal. But like I say, at the minute, some of the rumblings that we're hearing coming out of the camp about players not talking to the manager, agents not talking to the club because they just feel that they're not getting any sort of traction and that they're talking to a brick wall, players that want out of the club for personal reasons, injuries to key players left, right and centre. Not a good situation. Really isn't.
No, it's not the kind of situation you want to be going into this Arsenal game with. This is one of the very toughest fixtures we'll have all season. It remains to be seen. We don't know. Maybe if we're lucky, Arsenal will be a bit flat and we'll only lose 2-0. But as for Longelo, I like Longelo, but this is Moyes we're talking about. He won't recall him. As far as Moyes is concerned, he's got Cresswell, Emerson and Johnson play at left back, I don't see that happening. Hopefully Cresswell will be available. He's actually been playing quite well this season, to be fair, Cresswell, but the Arsenal game doesn't fill you with confidence. Do you know what the other thing I wanted to bring up with you actually this evening, Gates, is what the fuck is Cornet's problem?
Yeah, well, I sent that tweet that you reacted to, and it's utterly ridiculous that it just seems that the slightest little thing, and it's like, oh, I need another week off, boss. It's like having sort of like someone at work. So you've always, every workplace has got someone that's perennially on the sick. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I got a snuffle. I need to have a week off. Oh, fuck off, mate. Honestly, get yourself a backbone. Most players.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, look, we took the piss a lot out of Jack Wheelchair, but I think he actually wanted to play. I think he was really frustrated. He hated being injured. Really, really wanted to play football, but he was made of fucking paper, But this fucking Cornet lad seems to have some kind of attitude where he has to some powers. I've lost my mojo, boss. Don't want to play this week. I've lost my mojo. And, it seems to feel like he has his mojo back before he's comfortable playing football. He's completely fully fit, but he should be there available for the Arsenal game. But it's like you have to chat with him when he arrives in the morning of the games. How are you feeling today, pet? You feeling okay?
Yeah.
You feel like you can play a game of football today, mate?
Any problems at home? Anything I can help with?
I know. It's like, what are we paying him? I mean,
can I get you a cup of sweet tea? Is that all right? Oh, mate, honestly,
I'm sorry.
You're a professional sportsman, and unfortunately, injury is a part of the deal. No. So get on with it. Grow yourself a pair and knuckle down and get stuck in.
He needs a kick up the arse, frankly.
He'd probably get from that, Tom.
Yeah, he'd probably be out for 6 months. But
I have a bruise on my backside. I cannot possibly play.
it's fucking ridiculous.
It is. It's pathetic.
I can't believe players can get away with that stuff these days. I tell you what, Shankly won't put up with that shit.
No. Could you imagine sort of like Alex Ferguson? You having a player going into Alex Ferguson and saying, "Oh, I can't play today, boss." Well, why is that? I've got a paper cut on my index finger. What? Get your fucking ass on that pitch.
Yeah. Do you hear the
Or
you've heard the Tommy Smith story about when he was playing for Shankly at Liverpool?
No, go on.
He hurt his knee outside of the club at home or wherever, and he came into the training ground next morning. He had a bandage wrapped around his knee. He walks over to Shankly on the training ground and he says, "Don't think I can train today, boss. I've hurt my knee." You know what Shankly said to him?
No.
He said, "That's not your knee. That's Liverpool's knee. Now take that fucking puff bandage off and get training."
Very much of its time, ladies and gentlemen, but
yes, very much of his time. But that was the exact language he used. But it just goes to show the difference now that players have to be. Player power is gotten quite ridiculous. I mean, Mbappe is essentially choosing the manager of his club now at this point.
Crazy.
It's a player choosing the manager. It's absolutely, it's gone ridiculous. Absolutely,
the lunatics run the asylum, mate. The players have got so much power; it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, and Corney is in no position to dictate anything to anyone.
No,
he needs to kick up the arse.
To be fair, if you spoke to any Burnley fans, I mean, Burnley fans that I'd spoken to had said that fantastic player when he was on the pitch, but there was a lot of time that he wasn't. 180 million now falling apart. That's typical West Ham, though, isn't it? But I agree with that. It is an attitude. It's a mindset thing. It's mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter. And there's so many professional footballers that I've heard that have played. I mean, you would know, Tom, Paul McGrath. I mean, Jesus Christ, the geezer played. He had cortisone injections before the match and various other things. The geezer was literally falling apart, sort of like by the time he was about 28.
He couldn't really train.
No, but he would play every game, and he would look an absolute Rolls Royce of a defender, absolutely brilliant. But like you say, he couldn't do any impact work. I think a lot of his training was basically about being on a bicycle or going for a swim, bit like Ledley King. He couldn't do any impact work. It would all have to be fitness. But this geezer just, listen, we need all hands to the pump from the Arsenal game until the end of the season. We need all hands on deck. We need, every player to do their duty for the badge. No ifs, no buts. And I can't have this bullshit of players just, absolving themselves of responsibility. They're part of the reason why we're in this situation. I'm not blaming the players because Moyes has to take a share of the responsibility there. But some of the players have not been up to the mark this season, and Maxwell Cornet is one of them. One of our big signings in the summer. He's got to come out of the traps. All this bullshit about he needs to be 100%. No player's 100%, for Christ's sakes. Just get on with it.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness to Zouma, I mean, how long did he play with that fucking injury?
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah. But he was still there at training, and he was still there in the games, putting in a lot of bloody good performances as well. And, you'd see him sometimes, he'd go in and make a sliding tackle, and you could see him getting up that he was in pain. But he just kept soldiering on. It was obvious that he needed surgery. Thankfully, he's had it now, and hopefully that'll be the end of it. But, in fairness to him, he played through it. Didn't Dawson play through?
I think Dawson had an injury last season. I think you had Ogbonna. That's the first season we had at London Stadium, if I remember rightly. He had an injury and he put it off until we were safe from the drop, and then he went and had the operation that he needed. This geezer, Honestly, just no backbone. I can't tolerate it, mate. Maybe I'm an impatient old bastard, but I just can't be. I can't be having people that won't take a little bit of a knock. You know, as Sylvester Stallone said when in the film Rocky Balboa, ain't about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forwards. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't take much for Maxwell Cornet. He gets a little tap, and he's like, "That's me. I'm off. I need, and doctor's note. Yep, there you go. Here you go, Mr. Moyes." Bullshit.
Yeah, it's a strange one. And Moyes actually talked a lot, didn't he? About he really cares about the Moyes MOT, where he really cares about a player's character and all that. And fuck me, he's missed the trick here, isn't he? How did no one tell him? How did no one tell him? Like, obviously, Sean Dyche would have known.
Yeah. Burnley fans knew. I mean, how could Moyes do? I mean, like I say, this fabled MOT test. It's like, well, what did it involve with this geezer? What was it? Well, I'm not too sure. You lifted the hood here, mate. You probably kicked the tires, and that was about it.
I know. I'd rather fucking Arthur Daly sign players for us. You know what I mean? It's like
one careful owner.
Yeah, one careful owner. Yeah, it's ridiculous. But I mean, I don't know. Yeah, he needs to sort himself out. Another thing I saw some good news, Gatesy, which I was really happy because we probably need some good news. Ollie Scarles.
Yes.
Very, very promising youngster now. Up there with Ashley.
Unity, though, the thing.
Yeah, so this is part one. We've got him to sign the fucking contract, his first professional contract. Now we've got to get Moyes to fucking let him have some game time to keep him happy and show him that he's got a progression and a pathway there. And there's no excuse not to do it on that left-hand side, is there?
Yeah, either that, or even if I wouldn't have a problem if David Moyes said, okay, we're going to loan him out to a League 2, League 1 team to give him a little bit of experience. If he sent him out, say in January, and he went to, I don't know, let's just take a sort of fairly local club to where I'm living at the moment, Charlton Athletic. If he went and loaned him to a League 1 Charlton Athletic till the end of the season to get some miles on the clock, some experience under his belt, and he can come back and really hit the ground running in the summer, I'd be absolutely comfortable with that, Tom. Not a problem at all. Is it a 2-year contract he's signed, or is it just a 1?
Oh, off the top of my head, I don't recall, actually, Gatesy. To be honest with you, I only just saw that he had signed a professional contract. I didn't have time to actually get into the down into the weeds. But either way, it's great. It's great that he's got a contract. I was really impressed with him in the conference game. Was it played out in Bucharest, didn't he? And
yep.
I thought he was absolutely fantastic in that game. Man of the match performance.
Yeah, and Divine and Mubama as well. I mean, he's another one. Obviously, he unfortunately he didn't get the goal, but I thought he performed admirably. And this is another player. But as I say, my issue is that, and as I say, I've said this before, I'll say it again. We make this big song and dance about the Academy of Football. The club have taken the trouble to put it on the carpet as the players come out of the tunnel. There it is. It's there. Everyone can see it. 62,000 in the stadium and everybody watching around the world. Well, then we need to try and do something to at least try to live up to that tag. And it's no good, in my opinion, us having this conveyor belt of players coming from the 18s into the 21s, but then they don't progress from the 21s into the first team and are given a consistent opportunity to shine. And then they end up getting farmed out to teams like Scunthorpe and, Oxford United and teams like that. And it's like, well, Academy of Football, well, it's not the Academy of Football as far as West Ham's first team are concerned. We're kicking them out to teams down the EFL pyramid. That's all very well and good. But to be honest with you, I don't really give a monkeys about a player that came through, made one first team appearance, never got another appearance in the first team, and we ended up sort of letting him go on a free. That's no bloody good. That's not an academy of football. That's ridiculous.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, something's got to give, because one of two things is happening here, Gatesy. Either these young players who are good enough to develop in the first team squad are not being given the opportunity, or our academy are no longer producing players good enough. And I think we need to take a real look at this situation. Like you say, I mean, to call ourselves the Academy of Football, it's becoming a bit of a bad joke now. It really is. We're not living up to it whatsoever. So we need to know, are we not producing players good enough? And if we're not, why are we not? And if we are, then we need to say, well, why are they not progressing into the first team? Because something is wrong here.
I do think David Moyes is the problem there, if I'm being honest, Tom. And I know people will turn around and say, yes, but he's given more players their debut in the first team than da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, okay, he gave 18 players or whatever it is, their first team debut. How many of them played 20 matches for the club? Or even 10 matches for the club? Most of them probably played one match or a handful of matches, never to be seen again. It's all very well giving players a debut, for the last 5 minutes of a match, or playing them in games like Zagreb or FCSB when it doesn't matter. It's a dead rubber. It's like, it might as well be a fucking pre-season friendly then, for all that it meant. That's no real credit to you, for Christ's sakes. It just isn't. If you've come into the first team and you've had some sort of, let's use that'd be good. Vincent Kompany, yes please. Yeah. I don't think it's going to happen though, regrettably. But yeah, I mean, I go back to the interview with Tony Carr, and he said it on we interviewed him on Forged a couple of months back, and he's also been interviewed on other platforms as well, and he's recounted the story many times of Glenn Johnson when in 2003 we were heading towards the championship, we were sliding towards relegation. Glenn Roeder was struggling for a right back, and he turned around to Tony Carr and said, "Do you think Glenn Johnson could do a job for me in the first team?" And Tony Carr just turned around and said, "Well, until you give him the opportunity, Glenn, you'll never know." And there's the key: opportunity. These players need to be given an opportunity. They need to be given a chance to shine, not just for the last 5 minutes of a game that the result's already gone. Give them a start. Let's put a little bit of faith in youth. That's what we've always done over the years. We've always, and like I say, it's now becoming a little bit of a sort of like, what's the phrase I'm looking for? It's we're not living up to the tag. Academy of Football, like I say, if you're gonna put that there for all the world to see, the Academy of Football, then we need to at least look like we're trying to live up to that tag. And from where I'm sitting, we haven't done that for many, many years. Yes, Declan Rice was a product of our academy, but other than that, what have we brought into the first team other than Declan Rice over the last 10 years? Players that have come into the first team and, like I say, played 20 games or more. You're probably going to struggle.
Yeah, I think it's unacceptable. Like I said, I think we need some kind of audit to find out what the hell's going on. Otherwise, take down that Academy of Football thing at the stadium. It's becoming embarrassing. It'll just be something people laugh at, basically, the way things are going. I've got a question for you here, Kate. See that? There we go.
Mm-hmm. No, she's fed me very. It's just, listen, it's cost of living crisis, Victor. I'm trying to, there's a candle here. I mean, I could put this light on as well. Hang on. There you go. Is that better?
That's what you get for marrying. That's what you get for marrying Gertrude Fritzl. Yeah.
Ooh, I won't tell her you said that. She's standing just there, mate. I mean, all sorts of shit if she hears.
It's like something out of Misery, you know.
I've never seen that film all the way through. I've seen little snippets of it, but is it Kathy Bates, isn't it?
Yeah. She's brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant. But look, let's hope Ollie Scarles can break the mold here and actually force his way into the side. I know what you're saying about loaning him out. I wouldn't loan him out any more than second half of this season. I think from what I've seen, granted, I know we were only playing FCSB out in Bucharest, but he looks so promising, and I think with Cresswell's not getting any younger, and we could potentially use him there. And I'd like to see more of him. I'd like to see him in and around the first team squad. Emerson, let's be honest. I mean, he's not that great, and he's not especially young either. I think we have an opportunity, or Moyes has an opportunity here to say, look, we're going to get another lad in here, and we're going to give him his chance. I think there's a golden opportunity to do that with Scarles. I mean, he looks a brilliant prospect. So fingers crossed we'll at least see that. Remember the one that we went to Chelsea and we had one fit centre-back? And I thought, right, here's a chance.
Is that when he played Cresswell at left centre-back?
They Cresswell at left centre-back and Coufal at right centre-back. You remember?
Yeah.
And we were struggling all day on both sides from crosses because we had a complete lack of height in there at the posts.
That was when Dawson had a worldie, didn't he? And then he got sent off.
Yeah. And we had, Jesus, was it, who was the young lad we had on the bench, Gatesy, the centre-back?
Alessi.
And because I remember we're all thinking, right, here's a chance. Alessi looks like he could have something about a big lad, big strong lad. Certainly wouldn't be found wanting in the physical stakes, and was probably chomping at the bit, thinking, maybe this is my chance now to go out and prove myself. And he's on the bench and he doesn't get a look in the game. And I mean, if you're a young player, I mean, that's got to be completely disheartening.
Oh, absolutely.
You got to be thinking, like, if I can't play today,
I'll
never play.
Go. Yeah, exactly.
I'm never getting a game.
One fit centre back in the first team squad, and you're an under 21 player coming through. You must be sitting there going, here is my opportunity. Right, this has got to be it. I'm going to get into the first team. I'm going to grab that opportunity. I'm gonna show David Moyes what I'm capable of, and then an hour before kickoff, there's the team sheet, and he must be looking and going, mate, seriously, I got to get the fuck out of here.
You must be crestfallen.
Yeah,
I reckon that must have been the day when he went home to his parents and said, "I'm looking for a transfer to get out of West Ham. I'm never going to play. I'm never going to play." And I think Ashby was in the same position, actually. Even though he got some game time, but there was no trust put in him in any meaningful game. And I think he came to the realization, maybe had a chat with his parents, chat with his agent, and said, look, this guy's just never going to give me a chance to show what I can do.
And the thing with Ashby as well is that people forget his father's a former pro footballer himself.
Yeah.
Barry Ashby played for Gillingham and Watford, so he will be advised by his father because his father's trodden the path of a pro footballer 20 odd years ago, so he knows the terrain. But yeah, I mean, Alessi, I felt quite sorry for him last season when he didn't get a first team opportunity. Like I say, I think everybody was sitting there going, this is now Moyes doesn't have a choice here. He's been backed into a corner. He has to play Alessi, and then he puts a fullback in at centre back, and you're like,
two of them.
Right, okay, well then the kid clearly hasn't got a future under this manager. No chance.
Yeah, and I tweeted about it after the game. I said, if I was Alessi, I'd be putting in a transfer request immediately. That as soon as the season's over, I'm gone. I want out. because you've got no chance with a manager like that. Absolutely no chance. And because of it, we're losing Harrison Ashby as well. And Ben Johnson's going to piss off as well now.
We've lost Sonny Perkins as well, and we lost Ngaki. Yes, I know these players haven't exactly gone on and lit it up, but like I say, I do sort of like look and go, but what would have happened if we'd have showed them a little bit more faith, a little bit more consideration? Perkins is one that really annoys me, and I know, like I say, I know he hasn't played for Leeds yet. I know that he may go on and have an excellent career. He might not. It's one of those, he's still at an age, but it's just, we had someone in our first team that we a lot of people were looking at the time and going, he's got a lot of potential. Let's see. Let's chuck him in a couple of games here and there, and let's see what he's about. Nope.
Yeah, I mean, but you've got to find out, Gatesy. You know what I mean? It's if you've got a player that you think is really talented and has real potential, there's only one way you're going to find out if they can step up to the mark.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's just give them a chance.
And
if you give them a proper chance and they don't take it, okay.
Yeah.
We'll all see it. We'll all see it and say, okay, look, this player was given his opportunity. He was given a run of games. He wasn't really developing. He didn't look up to it. And if the manager decides then, look, we've got to go a different direction, we can understand that. But with these players, they're not getting a look in. And it's not good enough.
Well, Tony Martinez was one. He was bagging goals in for the under-21s, and there was a big clamour. Do you remember, for him to get in the first team? And he got in the first team, and he looked completely out of his depth. Now, obviously, he's gone away, and where's he playing now? Is Spain or Portugal?
Martinez
he's playing Champions League football now, isn't he?
He's in Portugal, I believe, isn't he?
I'm pretty sure he's playing Champions League football this season. I can't remember who for. Someone in the chat will probably type it in a minute, and I'll go, yeah, that's the one. But at the time, he was, he came into the first team on the back of good performances for the 21s, and some players just mature a little bit later. Some players just, it's not their time, and it sort of comes a little bit later. And the problem is we're living in a world in terms of Premier League football where there is no patience.
Yeah, it's, I suppose as well. Victor was saying
Porto, that's it. Yeah. Well done, Victor. Thank you.
Yeah. No, look, I understand as well. It's not as easy for managers now to bring players through in the same numbers that they used to. Managers previously would be given real time at a club. I think the average lifespan of a Premier League manager now is about 18 months.
Yeah.
So it's more difficult. There's a lot of pressure to get results and to get them now. And obviously with young players, you've got to give them time to develop and to allow them to make certain mistakes. And I think it's more difficult for managers to do that now because, you go on a run of bad games, all of a sudden you're under pressure for your job very quickly nowadays. So I understand it's not as easy as it used to be to bring players through, and maybe you have to be a bit more certain about them. Maybe you do have to feel that they're a bit special or whatever. But a lot of players aren't special at that age. And a lot of players will come in previously in years gone by where they were just put in and given the chance and weren't brilliant immediately, weren't, child prodigies. They had to learn their craft in that position and grow into it and become great players. And it's very hard for these players to do that now, unfortunately. We saw it with Declan Rice, remember? When he first came in, he made mistakes.
Yeah, the way wasn't it? He ducked as the ball was coming in, and it ended up going past Joe Hart. Wasn't
away to Newcastle.
Yeah,
lost as a goal away at Newcastle, got hooked at half time, but was put back in a couple of games later and put back in the team and allowed to make those mistakes. And look at the player he is now. He wasn't the player he is now when he came in the team. Nowhere near it. But just give him a chance. It's really annoying to me.
I agree. It is more difficult now than in the era of Ron Greenwood and John Lyall. It is a completely different era, and I know that. I'm pretty sure it was a conversation that I had on that interview with Tony Carr, where he turned around and said that managers now, by and large, are not really that interested in the under 18s, in the under 21s, because as you said yourself, the average life expectancy of a Premier League manager is 18 months. So if you've got a kid that's 15 years of age in the under 16s, why are you going to be unless they're world class at that age? Unless they're world class, you're not going to be interested in that young player, because you're probably not going to be there by the time that kid is hitting a maturity for you to sort of bring him into the first team. You're probably not going to be there. So I understand that. And as I say, it's an impatient world. We need success right now. And pretty much every Premier League manager is 6 defeats away from the sack. I don't think there's a Premier League manager that really could withstand 6 consecutive Premier League defeats. I don't even think Guardiola or Klopp, if they went 6 consecutive Premier League defeats, I think even they would be gone.
Yeah, it's tough out there these days. Just to sort of stick with Moyes for a minute and managerial woes, what's your gut feeling going forward? Do you think we'll regret not pulling the trigger when we had the perfect opportunity to do so with the World Cup? Do you think it's an inevitability that he'll end up being gone by the end of January, or do you think they're going to stick with him right till the end of the season at least?
I think I'll reserve judgment until I see what we produce against Arsenal. I think that for me will give me a hell of a clue. If we can come away from the Arsenal game with at the very least a performance that shows that we've got a team that is putting it in for the manager, then I think I would I would then be looking and going, okay, there's no shame in going to the Emirates and getting turned over, but it's the performance that I would be looking for. We need to then convert that performance and carry it over into the Brentford game, but get the win aligned with that. But and it is a but. If we go to the Emirates and get spanked, if we go there and have our trousers pulled down, then I think you could be right. I think we could regret possibly not pulling the trigger on David Moyes, because I seriously am concerned. And I know there's some people that look at West Ham as a squad, at what we've spent, 2 consecutive seasons in Europe, blah, blah, blah. And say, no, you've got enough. You'll stay up. You're not getting relegated, mate. I remember season 2002, 2003. Everybody said we wouldn't go down then. And you look at the players that we had. We had Di Canio, we had David James, we had Thomas Repka, we had Joe Cole, Michael Carrick, Jermaine Defoe, Trevor Sinclair, Freddie Canute. This is not a team that should have gone down, and it did. So if that can happen, please don't tell me that there's no way that this team could potentially get sucked into a relegation battle. I've got news for you. We're in a relegation battle.
In it now.
Yeah, we're in it.
Don't we still have to hold the record for the team relegated with the most points?
38 in a 38 game Premier League season, we got 42 points. Yeah. And if we'd have got the win at St Andrews on the last day, we'd have got 44 points and still gone down on goal difference.
Yeah, crazy, isn't it? That season was... It only happened to West Ham, wouldn't it, really? When you get 42 points and go down anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
crazy. And the thing about that season is, I always remember it, the first home game of that season, we played the defending champions Arsenal, and we were 2-0 up and 3-1 up. Oh, sorry, no, 2-0 up, and we had a penalty to make it 3-1, which I don't know if Canute missed it or Seaman saved it, whatever, and they ended up getting a draw off the back of it. And I remember that because that was actually my wedding day, and that was one of the very few times I missed a home game because I was getting married.
Jesus, yeah, I remember. Do you remember I don't know if you know that joke where the guys at the FA Cup final at Wembley,
No, go
and
on.
there's a guy 2 seats over from him, and the seat in between them is empty. And
I think I know where this is going.
Yeah, the guy says to him, says, "Geez, unusual to see a empty seat for a cup final, mate, isn't it?" And he says, "Oh yeah," he says, "Yeah, my wife was supposed to come with me, but she couldn't make it, so the seat's empty." And he said, "Jesus," says, "couldn't you have given the ticket to one of your other family members?" And he says, "Nah, they're fucking strange lot. Them, they're all at the funeral."
Oh, that's bad. That's bad. Very dark humor, but I like it.
Yeah, I love a bit of dark humor, but yeah, I think we're going to come to regret it. I think the writing's on the wall for Moyes. I have little
I hope.
faith. Go ahead.
I say I hope not. I hope. Look, I want David Moyes to succeed because I want West Ham to succeed. Please don't anyone be watching this and thinking that I want my club to do well. And off of the back of that means that I want David Moyes to do well. It's not because I like David Moyes. It's not because I dislike David Moyes. But fundamentally, I want my team to be as successful as they can be. So I want David Moyes to be successful off of the back of that. But
yeah,
he's had 180 million to spend in that last transfer window, and if we're to believe that he signed off on these transfers, then they've not worked so far, and the buck stops with him. That's Premier League management. That it's a fact of Premier League management that you are judged by your signings, you are judged by your results, and so far this season, neither have been good enough.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've never ever wanted West Ham to lose a game of football. I'll watch the Arsenal game. I'll be shouting them on, cheering them on, desperate for us to win that game. If we get even a point up there and play well, I'll be so happy. Same with Brentford and Leeds, and we've got is it the return game with Everton coming up and Chelsea coming up. All them games, I always want us to win. Always, I've never disliked the manager enough that I wanted West Ham to lose so they get the bullet. I've never done that. I will always want West Ham to win, and I would love nothing more than for us to come back from this break and have a brilliant remainder of the season. I'd love that. I'd love us to go on a really great run and turn our form completely around and play the way we were capable of playing. That would be fantastic. I'd love to be at the end of the season, just praising Moyes for the way he turned it around and admitting that I was wrong, that he should have gone before the World Cup. But I hope I'm wrong. Like you say, I just want to see West Ham win and do well. Unfortunately, I just don't have that faith in Moyes at the moment. Yeah. I don't see it happening, to be completely frank. And I think we will look back at it as a wasted opportunity to not make the change when we had this break. I mean, you're essentially giving the new manager a pre-season, which you don't often get the chance to do, especially if we're going to be spending some money in January. I mean, you can't give Moyes money to spend right now, can you? When you don't even know if he's going to be there. If this shit is true about him having, 3 games or whatever it is, having to get a certain amount of points to save his job, which I think is horseshit anyway, to be honest with you. But if that's the kind of scenario we're facing, how do you give a manager like that money to spend in January when you don't even know if he's going to be there by the time the window even closes? And you got a new manager in, bring the new manager in, and he have his little mini pre-season, and integrate the team into his way of thinking, his way of playing, and whatever formations he likes, and set up his tactics. And he can look ahead to January, get involved with Rob Newman and say, look, this is what I really feel like I need in January just to move things on. But I mean, if we have a horrible restart to the season and he ends up getting sacked after 3 or 4 games, I just think that would be shocking stuff, Gatesy, to be honest.
But it would be so West Ham, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. I think it's mismanagement on the part of the board, frankly. I mean, Sinead, who's sitting beside me, by the way, just so you know, Gatesy. Question for you: what would it take for you to change your mind about Moyes and have him stay on? Oh, I'll tell you what.
Be a good start.
Huh?
A win against Arsenal would be a good start.
It would be a good start. It wouldn't change my mind necessarily in and of itself. But he never wins them games. So I think we all know what's going to happen there. I mean, he's never won that kind of a game in the Premier League. Which is kind of
You'd
shocking.
take a point, though, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah, if we get a point, fine. It's a good point. But I think, that doesn't solve, in and of itself, that point wouldn't solve anything. If you know what I mean. It wouldn't mean our issues have gone away. I mean, look, we could shithouse a 0-0, or a 1-1 and still not really play very well. And, maybe Fabianski has the game of his life. And, it depends on how you're getting the results for me, Moisey. With Moisey, we can't keep playing the way we're playing, turgid and defensive and horrible to watch. And
agreed.
And so it's got to be, for me, a change of attitude from Moyes in the way he sets the team up and the way we go out and that we play. He's got to have the bollocks to drop players who are not getting it done. Drop Souček, for fuck's sake. If Bowen's form doesn't come good, and I mean fucking quickly, drop him. Get him out. He's got to stop this favoritism and the turnaround for me to change my mind on Moyes would take a sea change in the way he approaches games, to be honest, Gatesy.
But you probably can't see that coming any more than I can.
No, I don't think. I think we would have seen it by now. And to be completely honest with you, I don't think he knows anything other than being a poverty manager. I think he likes the grind, I don't think he knows what to do with players like fucking Scamacca and Paqueta. I don't think he's got a clue what to do with actual really top class players. I don't think he knows what to do with them. And that Moyes to me can be summed up. The way he thinks is he went to Man United, one of the biggest clubs in world football, who have a very big transfer kitty, can sign the best players in world football. And he still went in there and all he could think of was being a poverty manager. It should have been signing the best players in the world. He goes and gets Fellaini from Everton. He brings the likes of fucking Rio Ferdinand and Vidic them into a room and shows them footage of Phil Jagielka defending.
Brilliant, isn't it?
Like that, he can't think any other way. He just can't do it, and that's why I don't have any faith in him. I mean, he should have been looking for an absolute world-class central midfielder to bring into Man United, and he signs Fellaini, and he's showing Vidic and Ferdinand footage of Phil Jagielka. Oh, this is the kind of way I wanted to be.
The great big maestro.
And loads of Premier League titles. What the fuck are you doing? I mean, Ferdinand and Vidic must have been looking at each other going, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. Who's this cunt? Seriously? Unbelievable.
Do you know who we are? Do you know what we've done in the game? The quality we had was showing us how Phil.
How many Premier League titles has he got?
It's a fucking joke. And that's why I don't think he can turn it around. I think he is what he is. he was the right man at the right time for us in the position we were in and for what we needed. But that's all he can do, in my opinion. I don't think
everything has its shelf life, and I do, hand on heart, and I hope I'm wrong. I think he's run his course. I think he's come in. He obviously did what he did. He's done very, very well when you look at sort of the 2 spells that he's had as manager, getting us out of relegation twice, 2 European qualifications, top 6, top 7, blah blah blah, European semi-final. Fantastic, great, but it's falling apart this season. And like I say, everything has its time. I'm like, the stories about him not talking to players and, just sort of like the relationship with certain players seems to be not what you'd want it to be. I do wonder how the story last season about Král going to his car and crying and screaming and all the rest of it. I'm not being funny, but put yourself in the shoes of Thomas Souček and Vladimir Coufal, who were obviously his mates and were they were his friends before they was even at the club. How would you feel if you was Vladimir Coufal or Thomas Souček hearing that your mate was reduced to tears because of the way that the manager? You're not exactly going to look at that manager and go, yeah, you'll do for me. You're going to be looking at him and going, mate, you're some sort of prick.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, obviously, those guys would have been talking to each other very regularly in the evenings, maybe meeting up for dinner and stuff. So, they would have known exactly the way Král was being treated. They'd have been hearing it from Král personally, and it would leave a bitter taste. There's no doubt in it. And you can see Souček and Coufal actually right now are not happy. Coufal, because he's kind of feels like he's been frozen out a bit, and Souček because he just doesn't like the way he's being asked to play now, which was not the way he was being asked to play when he first came in. I mean, that first season he got like 10 goals from midfield. I mean, he was bombing forward, getting involved. Anytime a cross came in, you were looking right where Souček, because he's attacking it. So because of Declan Rice's evolution as more of a kind of box-to-box player, Souček has basically been turned into an extra centre-back, really, essentially. He's just another defender who happens to play alongside Rice in midfield now. So, we've got essentially a defensive midfielder beside Rice now, or a centre-back, essentially, an extra centre-back playing beside Rice now. And we've got, a lot of the time we've got Fornells, who was playing on the left-hand side as a holding winger, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
And this season now he's got Flynn Downs playing at number 10 as a holding number 10. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah, I think it's time to move on. I really do. And I do think we'll regret not doing it when we should have. Now, just I won't keep you too much longer, Gatesy.
That's right.
We'll pop off soon, but if it does come down to it in January, my fear is that because we've left it so late, if we have to pull the trigger on Moyes after another 3 or 4 games, we're into, say, the end of January, and we're either very close to or in the relegation zone. If he's getting sacked, we're probably in it. Now we've put ourselves in a position where we're looking to bring in someone to fight another fire. And you know what's going to happen. The board are going to turn and look at Sean Dyche and go, "Hey,
yeah,
we have to pay Moisey and his coaches off. We have to pay out their contracts, which they're going to hate doing, which I think is probably a large part of the reason why Moyes is still here, actually. So they're going to be looking for a nice cheap manager, aren't they, to offset it? So they're going to call on Sean Dyche or someone like that and say, just come in and save us, mate. Will you just make sure we stay up? And we're back to fucking square one. We're back to where we were.
Yeah.
And I think the board will have a lot of answering to do if that happens. A lot of answering to do.
But you can see it's going to happen, can't you?
Yeah, you can see it. Yeah. And it's, just a massive missed opportunity because I think we have a lot to recommend us. to managers and to very good managers. I think they take a look at the squad that we've got. I think they would all feel that that's a very good squad that they could really do something with. And they would feel absolutely that we're in a false position, that we should not be where we are in the table. And managers, of course, have egos. They always feel like I can go in there, turn this thing around, get this team motoring, and get them up the table. So I think there's a lot of very good managers that would be willing to take West Ham on as a project.
Who would be your choice, Tom?
Realistically, I'm going to exclude Pochettino and Tuchel. I think by the time we sack Moyes, they won't be realistic.
Yeah, I don't think they are now, quite frankly. But
yeah, I think that would be a bit of a stretch. I'd love either one, but realistically, I do not think Pochettino or Tuchel will be our manager. I think they're both waiting to see what happens with England. They both feel like maybe they could take over from Southgate potentially, because there's no really outstanding English candidate for the job, is there?
I think there's one, but I can't see Eddie Howe leaving Newcastle.
He'd be crazy. It's not happening. I think he would turn it down. Realistically, see, the problem I have is with our club as well, is that they're going to go and try and find someone who's out of work. I don't think they're going to pay compensation to a club to take their manager. I don't see it happening. I think they're going to look for someone who's unemployed. And that's why I think Dyche is a kind of player, a kind of manager that they're going to turn to, which is shocking. Or God forbid, if Southgate leaves the England job, they could turn to someone like Southgate.
Yeah, 29% win record at Middlesbrough, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean, and our board are like stupid enough to think that we'll think that's a good appointment because he was the England manager and took him to, semi-final and final and all that stuff. And Christ, that doesn't bear
different
thinking.
Environment management in international, it's a different animal.
Yeah, but realistically, I think we could get Vincent Kompany.
Yeah,
I think we could nick him from Burnley. I think he'd jump at the chance to sign for West Ham. I think that would be a fantastic signing. I really like Thomas Frank at Brentford.
I don't see him coming.
Do you know what I do, Gatesy?
Really?
Yeah, I think he knows that while things are going well at Brentford, I think he knows that where he is with Brentford now is about all he can realistically ever achieve at Brentford. That the only way Brentford really can go from here is down, really, realistically in the long term. I think he would see West Ham as a project that he could really get his teeth into and that he could really do something. It's a club he feels that he could take into Europe. The evidence of that is already there because it was this season and last we've been in Europe. He'll know we've got a very good squad of players. He'll know we're in a false position. We're massively underperforming. I think Frank would jump at the chance to try and do something with West Ham. It is absolutely a step up from Brentford, regardless of the fact that I'm sure he likes being Brentford manager and he's doing well with Brentford. But I think this step up, I think he would take. I would really like to go for someone like Mancini, current Italy manager. Obviously Mancini is I'd be absolutely ecstatic if we could get Mancini. Obviously, look, he's very proud to manage his country. Everyone is. But it is not the same as being a club manager. It's just not. It's a part-time job, essentially. Whereas, managing a club, it's week in, week out, very busy, in the thick of it. He knows the Premier League. He loves the Premier League. And I think I'd love my number one choice would be probably Mancini, followed by Vincent Kompany. If we're being realistic, Thomas Frank, I'd be very happy with. I really like the way Frank plays football. What he's done with Brentford is fantastic. I think he's done an absolutely cracking job with Brentford. There is also Postecoglou at Celtic. I just like that guy's vibe. I think he comes across as like a great man manager. I think he'd be very, very popular with the players and the fans. I just love his attitude. I know he's managed in the A-League, the J-League, and now the Scottish Premiership. So I know people will throw it out there. Well, he hasn't managed in the top league. Okay, so what? At some point, these managers who are up-and-coming managers have to make that leap and that break.
Well,
I didn't know shit about.
We've been talking about opportunity, haven't we? About the youth players. We've been talking about opportunity to be given to them. Well, same thing with these managers.
I didn't know who Thomas Frank was before he took over at Brentford.
Most people didn't know who Arsene Wenger was when he rocked up at Highbury all those years ago.
Did you know who Pochettino was before he took over at Southampton?
Not instantly. I mean, when someone turned around and said, "Oh, he was the guy that got fouled or committed the foul in 2002 to give England the penalty against Argentina in the World Cup," and I was like, "Oh, was that him?" sort of thing. But
yeah,
other than that, I
don't
know who he was.
Yeah, but not as a manager.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Postecoglou would do as well. But yeah, I suppose in order, first choice would be Mancini, second would be Kompany, third Thomas Frank, and then fourth Postecoglou. I think any one of those could potentially do a great job for us, and I think the style of football would be much more palatable as well. So that's what I'd love to see.
We'll end up with Sean Dyche.
It'll be Dyche, yeah. It'll be Sean Dyche or some fucking one like that. It's...
And like you say, it'll be back to square one when Moyes walked through the door when Pellegrini was kicked out. It's like a firefighter.
Yeah. Like Dyche will probably keep us up, and then we'll be thinking they're fucking going to give him a 2-year contract now, aren't they?
I don't think you'll get 180 million to spend in the summer transfer window, though.
No. But do you know what I will say? Do you know what I'll say, though? There is a part of me that feels a little bit sorry for Sean Dyche. He's been pigeonholed. He's been pigeonholed because he cut his cloth accordingly at Burnley. So he had to do what he did at Burnley to make them competitive and to keep them in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And he let's not forget. Let's give the man credit where it's due. He did an outstanding job at Burnley. Yeah. Outstanding. Given Burnley got fuck all money. Their transfer budget is minuscule, and it's not exactly a club that's going to draw in top players, is it?
No,
you ask a really good player, you want to come play for me at Burnley? You're like, no. Firstly, who are
where?
And who the fuck are Burnley? Where's that? North of England? Oh, fuck off. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So I don't want to be harsh on Sean Dyche, because I did see an interview with him where it was put to him that he has this reputation as this kind of dour manager who likes to play it direct and, as he did at Burnley. And he said, well, look, I had to do that at Burnley. He said, I had to cut my cloth accordingly. I had to play that way, to keep them competitive and give us a chance, to still be in the Premier League the next season. And he said, I had no money to spend. I had to do whatever I had to do to get the most out of these players and make us as difficult to beat as I could, and, make us an arsehole of a team to play against and try and win enough points to keep them up there. And he said, I did it season after season because that's what I had to do. He said, if I had, bigger budget, better players, better players who were better technically and just all around better players, he said, I wouldn't have to play like that. He said, it would
be interesting.
So it would be, there is that part of me, maybe not at West Ham, but because just in case, but there is that part of me that like to see Sean Dyche get a job, with another club in the Premier League that are like better than Burnley, that have better players.
I think he possibly could have that in him, because I mean, because he first came through at Nottingham Forest under Brian Clough. Well, Brian Clough didn't play football in the air. He was the one that turned around and said, we play on the ground because that's where the grass is, sort of thing. It's not up in the fucking clouds. So, maybe he would come into a better club with a sort of like a decent transfer budget, and he would come in with players infinitely better, with all due respect to Burnley, than what he walked into when he walked into Burnley for the first time. If he came to West Ham, you know, it's like you got Scamacca, you've got Paqueta, you've got Lanzini, you've got. I mean, he'd know Cornet. I mean, you know, he'd be able to sort of give Cornet a little bit of a slap around the chops and say, "Get your ass out there and start tearing it up, mate. Come on." But yeah, I would I like to see Sean Dyche as West Ham manager. Like I say, ideally, I'd like to see David Moyes be able to turn it round. Do I think he will? Probably not.
Yeah, there is that part. I'll tell you what, if it came down to it, and you offered me Dyche right now and get rid of Moyes, I'd fucking do it. I'd do it right now. If you said, right, here's the option, we're bringing Sean Dyche, get rid of Moyes, I would take the chance.
I'd at least want to see what they do against Arsenal as a minute. Like I say, I'd just be like, okay, look, what's he done in that sort of like 6-7 week period of no Premier League football? What has he done to try and galvanise the squad? And is he? I mean, personally, I saw that comment there about 4-4-2. I want to go 4-3-3.
Yeah,
I want to see a 4-3-3 because let's look at this, right? Declan Rice played in a 4-3-3 for England, and he played very well. Everybody was going on about Jude Bellingham, but make no mistake about it, Bellingham couldn't have done what he did without Declan Rice providing that cover for him to do what he did. Declan Rice as the fulcrum in the midfield three. Where did Lucas Paqueta play? He played in a 4-3-3. So play him there for West Ham. He played there for Brazil. No problem at all. And then we go to Scamacca. Well, Scamacca played in a 4-3-3 most of the time for Sassuolo. He had Raspadori and Berardi either side of him. He was the central of the front three. So there you go. You've got 3 players that know how to play that formation. I don't think 4-2-3-1 with Paqueta playing just behind Scamacca.
No,
it hasn't worked. So we need to try something different.
Yeah, and you've for that 3 in midfield. I mean, you've got a perfect balance. You know, with Rice, Downs, and Paqueta, you've got a perfect midfield balance. You know, Downs will happily stay back. You know, Rice and Paqueta can advance. You know, and join attacks, get forward, knowing that they've still got the 4 defenders back there, and they've got Downs in there to break up any counters. And like I say, then you've got some actual support then up top for Scamacca, which he badly needs. You know, you can have whatever 3 you go with, whether it's maybe Benny and Bowen, you know, and Scamacca as the 3, who all 3 of who can do some damage. You know, so yeah, I'd love to see that. Now, obviously, we're not going to see that at Arsenal. We'll very likely see wing backs.
Go 5-4-1 probably, or 5-5.
Yeah, look, Moyes will do as usual. You know, let's try not to concede in the first 30 minutes of each half, and so maybe we can nick something, do a quick smash and grab. Never works, but he'll still do it.
Yeah, we'll get to about 85 minutes at 0-0, Tom, and we'll be sitting there watching it going, oh, come on, we're 5 minutes from getting a point. We're hanging on for grim death, and then something will happen. Someone will get sent off. We'll concede a penalty. There'll be an own goal scored off of someone's arse or something, and it'll be like, oh, here we fucking go.
Yeah. And you know what? As well as that, Gatesy, even outside of Moyes, we fucking have no luck against Arsenal, ever. Like, there's been times when we've played brilliant against them. There've been times I've seen we've outplayed them and we still lose. It seems like no matter what we do against Arsenal, we just still lose that fucking game.
Yeah.
It's actually the one game that's kind of pissed me off the most. I can see why we've lost to the other teams, because, you know, the way Moyes sets us up defensively, we don't really have a go at them. But there have been times of the last few seasons we've actually played really well against Arsenal, and we've really deserved at least a point and often a win, and we've still got fucking beat.
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah. bit of a bogey team, but that run's going to come to an end at some point. Maybe it will come to a end on Boxing Day. Maybe we could. Nah, who am I kidding?
No, it's not gonna, is it? No. I love your optimism, Gatesy, but it's
Even
not.
I say, yeah. Like I say, I would be absolutely over the moon with a point. Seriously, I would be over the moon with a point. Even if we got beat, if I could look at the performance and at least go, do you know what? We were fucking unlucky there. We battered them. We just couldn't get the goal to draw us level, and they beat us 2-1, but we absolutely murdered them. And I saw 11 players plus subs that sweated and gave all they could for the shirt, gave all they could for the manager. And this is a team that are fighting. Then I will be. I will have a great deal of hope going into the Brentford game. But if I don't see that, Tom, I am really concerned. Seriously concerned.
Yeah, well, I think you should brace yourself, Gatesy, to be honest. I kind of can see already in my head what's coming in that game. But I mean, it's weird because Moyes talked about evolution. He seemed to understand that we couldn't keep doing what we were doing that had served us well initially in his reign and gotten us up the table and improved us. He seemed to understand we can't just keep doing that and expect things to stay as they are. He said we have to evolve as a team. We've got to bring in different types of players who can do different things, which we've done, to be fair. You know, we brought in the likes of Scamacca and Paqueta, you know, really, really, really good players. And it looked like, okay, maybe the evolution is happening. You know, brought in Aguerd, a ball-playing centre-back. But we just haven't seen it on the pitch. It's been the same old shit. And it's like, where's the evolution, David? Where is it? And like I said, I don't think he knows how to do it.
I think it's difficult for a guy that's 60 that's been managing in Premier League for over 20 years to change. You know the style of football that he played at Everton. You know the style of football that he's played pretty much all through his career. He is what he is. And that's not a criticism, it's a fact. David Moyes, you know the style of football that he plays because he's done it for many, many years.
Yeah. The answer to that question, Lawrence, is yes. I think if he gets 4 points, it'll be a case of, okay, we'll give him another couple of games. And this is the problem. This is why I hate this 3 games to save your job horseshit. Because let's say we go out and get 4 or 5 points out of the 9, it'll be just enough to placate the board to say, all right, let's just leave him there for another 2 or 3 games and see how those go. And then we get another 4 or 5 points. It's okay, let's just go another 3. It's like this never-ending cycle unless things go tits up. And you get sacked in the first 3 games. I just can't stand that shit. It's either back him till the end of the season or fucking get rid. You know, this hedging is fucking ridiculous.
Halfway house. It's you're getting splinters in your ass. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and but look, we'll find out soon enough. The game's getting ever closer. So before we go, Gatesy, one quick question for you then. Seeing as I suppose we've got these 3 crunch games coming up. So we've got Arsenal away, Brentford at home, and then Leeds away. What do you predict? How many points are we going to pick up, and where are we going to get them?
We don't get anything at the Emirates. We're not.
We probably won't change his position.
I hope, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope we do, but I think hand on heart, I can see us getting beat at the Emirates. I think Brentford. Yeah, they have been something of a hex to us the last couple of times, but I mean we've only played them twice, so it's not like they've got 6, 7, 8 games where we've not managed to get a win. It's 2.
They're not Brighton, yeah.
Yeah, so not yet anyway.
You're getting there.
Yeah, But no, I think Brentford, we're capable. I mean, does anybody know what is the situation with Ivan Toney? Because it's going to hinge on that. I mean, is Ivan Toney going to be available for them because of all this thing about this betting malarkey? Is he going to be available? Because if he is, huge boost for us.
Yeah, I think he will be available. I suspect. Let's assume he plays.
Yeah. Oh fuck it. I'm gonna say we're gonna get 3 points off of them.
Road.
Ooh. Leeds are a funny team, aren't they? You know, they'll win a game 4-3, they'll lose a game 4-3. There's some games you look at them and you go, fucking hell, these are really, really good sort of free-flowing attacking team, but they can't defend for toffee. They're a modern-day version of Newcastle under Kevin Keegan, aren't they? That's the one where I'm like, oh, that could literally be anything. That could be anything whatsoever.
Yeah, it's hard to call.
I'm going to go 4 points. We'll get a draw at Leeds. A win or loss and a draw. 4 points.
I agree on the 4 points. I think it'll be a little different. Like you, I believe we'll lose at the Emirates. I think Brentford will hold us at our place. I think they'll nick a point off us there. I think maybe a 1-1, something like that. Brentford are a good side under Thomas Frank. Difficult to play against. You know, they've got goals in them. They attacked very well, and our defense in that game, I think, is going to be vulnerable. But I think we can go to Leeds and get a win. Like I say, I know they can be very good on their day, but fuck me, they leak badly at the back. So I think that we'll get some joy there. And I think, so I think 4 points, but I think we'll draw home to Brentford and win at Elland Road. We've been good against Leeds in recent seasons. You know, we've got a good record against them. So I think that might continue. But like you, I think 4 points, and I think it means that we just trundle on with David Moyes. 4 points will possibly keep us just afloat and still hovering outside the relegation zone. But the worry, of course, is that, you know, Forest look like they're starting to get it together, and it seems like they will very possibly have a better second half of the season than they had in the first half, which could cause us a real problem unless we really, really improve and start getting some wins. We could find ourselves quite quickly in the relegation zone, and I think that's the point at which they pull the trigger on David Moyes. But we could have played 5 or 6 games at that point, and I think then we're leaving it very, very late. We're looking for another manager to save us. But look, we'll wait and see what happens, Gatesy. The last break did wonders for Moyes for some reason. You remember the COVID break when football broke up, and we looked dead certs to go down. I was really convinced we were getting relegated. We had tough games. You know, like we had Chelsea and then Newcastle away.
Rightly.
Yeah, with Chelsea at home and a Newcastle away. I really thought we were going to lose both them games. You know, we ended up turning Chelsea over famously. I think that was Yarmolenko's injury time winner, wasn't it, in the 3-2? And
we was at home to Wolves and we was away at Spurs, if you remember rightly. We lost them both. And I was, after that Spurs game, I was like, oh shit, we're dead.
Yeah, I thought we were just dead in the water. But that Chelsea win, just from then on, we were just a completely different team. It was just chalk and cheese. It was just like someone flicked a switch. So maybe after this break, maybe the switch will be flicked again. Who knows? That would be fantastic, you know, because I think there's a really, really great chance, Gatesy, for us to win the Conference League. I think that's really winnable.
I've already booked my days off for that, mate. I've already got that booked. Please let us get there.
Yeah, because I mean, the way we're playing right now, that won't happen. We won't win it. We need a complete turnaround in form. If that happens, then we've got a right chance, and that would be amazing. Like to win real silverware, meaningful silverware would be amazing. And of course, we're not going to make Europe this season. That's not going to happen. Not through the league. Yeah. So I think it's imperative that we go and win the conference. I mean, that apart from silverware, it gets us a Europa League spot for next season, which would be wonderful to have, 3 seasons in a row in Europe and some silverware. I mean, that would just be magnificent. I mean, you offer me that now, I'll take 12th.
Oh, yeah, all day.
12th, 14th, don't give a shit. If we win that silverware, I mean, that would be worth far more to me than finishing 7th. It really would. It would just be incredible.
Definitely. I agree.
But we need that turnaround. So whether it's under Moyes or a new manager, let's hope by the time that game comes around in March, whoever we're playing, Gates, I don't remember. Did they do both draws? Did they do the draw for the last 16 and the other one?
I'm not sure. I know that from memory, the draw is on the 24th of Feb.
Right, okay.
And because we won our group,
we're guaranteed home in the second leg, aren't we?
That's correct, yeah. Like what we had last season, we won our group in the Europa League. So when we played our last 16 tie against Sevilla, we were the seeded team and we got the advantage of having, or the perceived advantage of having the home leg as the second leg of the tie, which obviously you got to say probably did give us a slight advantage because we played extra time in that tie and we obviously got our noses in front in extra time with Yarmolenko. So hopefully it happens again.
Yeah, I was after the Sevilla and Lyon games, I really thought we were going to play Barcelona. I really did. I thought I was mouth-watering and shaking my hands. Oh, God, we're going to play Barcelona in a European semi-final. What heady days. And then, of course, Eintracht Frankfurt went and burst that bubble. But
yeah. But burst Barcelona's bubble, burst our bubble, and then burst Rangers' bubble in the final. They did a lot of bubble bursting that season. But
yes, they did, the bastards.
One thing saying about sort of the Conference League, because one of the teams that's involved in it is Lazio, isn't it? And I don't know if you've heard the news. Do you remember Sinisa Mihailovic?
Yes.
He's died.
Oh, really?
He had leukemia, and he passed away. He's 53 years of age. So he was a cracking player. Took a brilliant free kick. Quality player. I heard it sort of like about an hour or so before we started here, and I was like, bloody hell, that's no age at all.
Yeah, rest in peace. Yeah,
absolutely.
Always sad to hear. But I guess on that somber note, we'll leave it there, Gatesy. Listen, I really appreciate you coming on, mate. It was great getting your opinions on everything we spoke about. Makes it a hell of a lot easier than me being here on my own. Let's put it that way.
Always glad to help, mate. You know that.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, mate. And like I say, if you ever need me, you know where I am. And also, before we go, for anyone in the chat who doesn't know, let them know where they can find you, mate.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Tom. We have a YouTube channel. It's called Forged from Iron West Ham United. Just put that into the search bar and you'll find where we're at. And we're also on all the usual social media platforms as well. So if you haven't already done so, I'd be very grateful if you could pop along and give us a sub.
Yeah, I've been on there with yourself and Duke and them. So, it's a great channel, great content, and absolutely.
Above average.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Great channel and loads of great content on there. So definitely recommend it. So for any of you in the chat who aren't aware of the channel, get on there and get subscribed for West Ham content on the regular. And also everyone in the chat, listen, really appreciate you being there with us. I know it's a bit late on a Friday night and you probably have better things to be doing. I wish you had.
Probably all sitting down. I mean, because it's 20 to midnight, so probably a lot of them are sitting down. They've had a couple of beers. They're sitting down there with their kebab, and they're listening to us pair of prats waffling on.
That's it. But appreciate everyone, and hopefully you can all join me back here at 10 p.m. next week. And and we'll have lots more